Okay, hello everybody. I am Alec Torelli. Welcome to my third webinar here. For those of you guys that don't know me or just checking out this video on YouTube for the first time, I am a high-stakes professional poker player. I've been playing poker professionally for 10 years. You can learn a lot more about me at my site, alectorelli.com. We're browsing through some of the other YouTube videos here, and of course, hopefully you'll get a good feel for me today, and you'll stick around. So, okay, hello everybody. I am Alec Torelli. Welcome to my third webinar here. That's me. Sorry. For those of you guys that don't know me or just checking out this video on YouTube for the first time. In the background. Sorry, everybody. That was technical difficulties. Anyway, I had my YouTube on in the background. So I lived in Macau the past 3 years. I've been traveling the world full time since I was about 18, playing poker tournaments and mainly high stakes cash games has been what I go to. Mainly my biggest area of expertise, my biggest passion in poker. And I've been doing coaching the last 3 or 4 years, and I just got some products released recently that I'm really excited about, and I've been working with a lot of people in my practice as well. So it's been a lot of fun and rewarding for me. So today I wanted to talk to you. I mean, we're open to anything. It's open Q&A like it has been the last 2 times. So any questions are totally fair game. I see a ton of questions in the YouTubes that I've gotten a lot via email that I could answer for you guys that haven't joined or that are watching this later. I will try and get to those as best as I can. But I get a ton of stuff on the subject of tournament poker specifically and some necessary adjustments that people want to make in tournaments. And I know a lot of you guys, especially last week, we had a lot of these questions where people are bouncing back and forth between tournament and cash games, and they're wondering, what sort of technical adjustments to make or what sort of strategic adjustments to make in the different formats of poker, and basically, how they differ, and more specifically, maybe they have one hand, how would they play that hand in a tournament, and then how would they play that same hand in a cash game. But on a bigger picture, why would they do that? Why would they adjust their strategy, and what factors should you be considering when making these adjustments? So I want to talk first about cash game poker. It's my favorite form of poker, my biggest area of expertise, and just the mechanism of how it works and sort of how you should be thinking about the game, how you should be approaching the game in cash games. And then we'll talk about some of the differences that you might be doing in tournaments. So cash game poker is much more direct. It's much more innate to the way that you naturally think about decision making, in that you want to put money in when you have the best hand and you want to fold when you have the worst hand. It's very logical. It's almost trivial. Anytime you are in a situation where you have more equity than your opponent, or you have the best possible hand, or you think you could win the pot, you're supposed to be pushing every small edge that you can get, simply because you are supposed to have enough money within your bankroll, enough money that you could play cash games with, in order to withstand any variance that you're going to experience. So, for example, a great situation in a cash game is if you have pocket jacks against ace-king. It's actually considered a race, but jacks are an equity favorite against ace-king. And to highlight this, if you look at a casino and how they make money, casinos make money from very, very small edges, much smaller than the edges that you'll find in a poker game. So if you're 57-43, like you are with jacks to ace-king, for example, you're a pretty decent favorite. Casinos make money off of 1 or 2% edges in games like blackjack, baccarat, or roulette. Whereas in poker, even if you're a so-called coin flip, that's a pretty big favorite, especially when you're considering the fact that there's already a substantial size pot by the time you get all the money in, so you're getting a price on your money. You're generally getting pot odds to call with a hand that has slightly worse equity than 50-50 because the pot is already big. So in cash games, you want to be pushing every edge that you can, and anytime that you have enough equity to justify calling relative to the size of the pot, you want to be putting money in the pot. On the river, for example, if someone goes all in, you don't really have your tournament life to consider. You simply have to say, okay, what is the percentage of the time I have the best hand, and what pot odds am I getting, and make a decision accordingly. If you determine that it's 50-50 whether you win the pot, for example, let's just say, keep the math simple, you're like, okay, it's 50-50 whether he's bluffing or he has the best hand here. If the guy bets $100 into a $100 pot, you're calling 100 to win 200. You only have to be right 1 out of 3 times, so it's a great spot to call. You only need to be right a third of the time, and it's 50-50 whether he's bluffing or value betting. So you're going to make the difference in that EV by calling. So it's a great spot to put in the money. That's really the only thing you're considering in a cash game. Do I have the best hand often enough to justify putting money into the pot? if you're thinking about making a decision on the river. And that's a very typical situation where you're thinking. That's where your big decisions come into play. That's where your big blind decisions come into play. And should I value bet the river thinly if I think he's going to call me with a worse, or should I make a hero call on the river if I think my opponent's bluffing? And it's pretty straightforward, your thought process, or it should be pretty straightforward. And that's why cash games play in that manner, and that's how you should be thinking. In a tournament, inversely, it's much, much different. There's much more to consider in a tournament, and that's based on how the mechanism of a tournament actually works. So the easiest way to understand this conceptually is that the principle is that your chips don't increase, your stack doesn't increase in value proportionally to your chips increasing. So if you go from 50,000 chips to 100,000 chips in a tournament, the value of your stack doesn't double, because simply having a stack is worth something in a tournament. So each money has diminishing marginal return. The more money you have, the more chips you have, the less value each chip is worth. So that gives credence to you playing more aggressively when you have a big stack, because those additional chips aren't worth as much as your previous chips. It's kind of like in your real life. If you have $17 million and you go from having 17 million to 18 million, it doesn't really matter that much. Your life doesn't change that much. Nothing really doesn't really matter. So you can be more aggressive if you have a ridiculous amount of money, because you can afford to gamble, essentially. And losing doesn't really hurt you, and all you have really is to gain. But the really way to understand this principle is if you look at the payout structure of a tournament. Let's say you have, let's say you win all the chips in a tournament. So there's 1 million chips in play. You win all 1 million of them. You don't get $1 million in prize money. You don't get 100% of the prize pool. You get a fraction of the prize pool. You get 20% of the prize pool if you win all the chips. So that should lend credence to the idea that in a tournament, your chips are worth much less than 1-to-1 value. So what does that mean for how you should adjust practically? Well, it means that because just remaining in the tournament has value intrinsically, it has much more value than increasing your chip stack. Preserving your chip stack is really king here, and it's really the most important thing to consider. And so taking unnecessary risks or marginally positive expectation bets or gains is not worth the variance, because those additional chips you gain don't help you as much as losing chips hurt you. So you want to be extra cautious in tournaments, and you might not risk value betting in a spot where the pot is decently big and you have a pot size bet left. So if the pot's 50,000 and you have 50,000 left, you might not value bet thinly the rest of your stack, because if you double up that additional 50,000, it doesn't help you as much as losing that 50,000 would hurt you. So what that means is that in a situation where you're like, well, I'm 60% to have the best hand here, you might not opt to make a very, very thin value bet, because the 40% of the time you're wrong is going to cost you more money than gaining chips in the 60% of the time that you're right. So you have to be much, much more cautious in how you play, and you basically never want to be in an all-in situation. So gambling with something like jacks, even if you know your opponent has ace-king, is generally not correct, because even if you are a slight equity favorite, it's not worth the variance. So that could alter the way that you're going to be playing your hands, and perhaps you're going to do something like flat call instead of try and re-raise to induce a bluff shove or something like that, because you don't really want to be in a racing situation unless there's so many worse hands that your opponent puts the money within that your jacks or whatever hand you have are substantial enough favorite in order to justify the risk that you're taking. So those are some of the differences between tournaments and cash games, and just some of like a macro level how you should be thinking about them to sort of make your own decisions in the different formats of poker. So that's something I'm getting a lot of my questions, comments, and especially when we do different hands of the day. How would you play this in a cash game? How would you play this in a tournament? So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the strategy behind them from a broad level, and then hopefully we'll have time to go into a specific hand, and we can talk about some of the differences. But yeah, I want to open this up to questions for you guys. If you have questions on the subject at hand, of course, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I know some of you, I talked to you guys before the webinar, I know some of you guys had questions about things that were different, so that's fine as well. And yeah, so go ahead. I want to welcome everybody here. I see Christopher, Aujun, Jur, Oscar, Sharman. Hey, you guys. I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions now. So throw up a hand. Sharman, I know you had a question from earlier. We were kind of talking before here. So why don't you tell everybody and introduce yourself, say hey, and
I guess the one, aside from that question, you just talked about the differences between the cash and the tournament, and I'm just wondering because all I do is play tournaments, and I've been playing them probably for 2 years, and I'm just wondering, is it to my advantage to maybe get involved in cash games, or I mean, I don't really care either way, but would it help me in a tournament play?
That's a great question, and it's cool that it's kind of on subject as well. So cash games will definitely help your conceptual ability to think as a poker player because you're forced to make a lot more decisions and different types of decisions than you're making in a tournament. So the closest thing I could give you to experience you might have had playing cash games is something like the first 2 levels of a tournament where you're really, really deep. And you'll notice that a lot of the time you're not in a spot where you're re-raising or going all in, or the pots aren't really that important relative to your chip stack, so it's not like you feel any pressure to play a lot more hands or to race against the blinds or to force any action to happen. It's really more of a patient waiting game, and it's a different texture of poker altogether. So I think that cash games really help for the first day of a tournament if you're playing a 5-day event, or the first 4 levels of a tournament where the mechanism of the tournament that you're playing is actually much more synonymous with a cash game in terms of the relative stack depth that you have. I also think that cash games challenge you to hand read better. And if I'm going to make a general statement, I'm going to say that cash game players are generally better hand readers. They're better at deducing hand ranges than tournament players, and that's because they have much more experience. So in tournaments, you'll notice, especially in the later stages, that you rarely are making big decisions on the river. And that's because most of the time, you're going to commit your stack on the flop or pre-flop, and usually it doesn't go bet, bet, bet. There's not a lot of like 3-betting pre-flop and then bet the flop, bet the turn, bet the river. You just don't have the stack depth for that to happen, and it generally doesn't happen. In cash games, though, those sorts of big river decisions happen all the time, and people are used to playing deep stack poker. And so that changes the dynamics of the game dramatically, and it forces you to really challenge yourself to stretch yourself and your hand reading ability. And I think it makes you a better overall poker player, and you could take that knowledge to tournaments, but the key is adjusting it to the specific situation that you're in. So I think it will help your overall poker game. I think it will help your tournament game, and I think it'll make you a more well-rounded poker player. Not to mention, it's also fun to challenge yourself in different forms of poker. So I would recommend it. For sure. Good question. Hey, Christopher, I just noticed you just joined as well. How you doing, man? I see you over there. What's up?
I'm just going to go to the YouTube.
Yeah, no, I know you had another question about what we talked about earlier about poker and some etiquette. So just hang out. There's a few spaces left in here, so until it gets full, you're welcome to just hang on.
Okay.
So, Christopher, do you guys have any questions? I noticed you guys just joined, so feel free to chime in. I don't know if you caught the beginning. We're talking about some of the differences between tournaments and cash games. So if you have something on subject, great. If not, welcome to talk about anything.
Can you hear me good?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I actually play a lot of tournaments in Vegas, primarily the deep stack levels at Aria, which is a pretty good structure.
Right.
I run into a good process in terms of decision making all the way down to maybe 14, 15 players left, 2 tables for the past 3-4 weeks that I've been playing over there. I ended up bubbling most of the time lately, and my decisions have always been very right for the most part of the tournament. In the later stages, I get into a dwindling maybe 15, 20 big blind stack.
Right.
Excuse me. And then I know most of the players that regularly play in that casino. And then the major problem I get into is I always run into big hands up against like in position, and I have ace king or some sort of pocket queens on the button or on the big blinds, and I mean, there's an open shove, and all I had to do is put it in, and basically it's a no-brainer. But then again, I couldn't win most of this either flips against queens against ace king, or nut flush draws against pocket tens.
Right.
I mean, it's been frustrating lately for the past 4 or 5 weeks I've been playing, and 2 to the money, 3 to the money. It's been.
I get it. I get where you're going. What can I help you improve on? What's your? I can't make you be luckier, so I gotta think of. You gotta tell me something that I can help you with here. I'd love to change your luck, but if I knew how to do that.
I know. It just gets frustrating sometimes. The decision-making process is there, and it just kind of ends up going to a 50-50 flip in the end, and we're down to the bubble and stuff like that. It just gets frustrating for me every now and then once I play. So it's something that I need to adjust with. Get.
All right, I got where you're at. Let me try and tell you let me try to give you some perspective. I mean, you're playing an event where, let's say you were to enter a contest, okay? Let's say there were 256 people, okay? And in this contest,
right,
it was a heads-up tournament, okay? Now, if it were a heads-up tournament and there were no skill involved, what you would be doing is you would essentially be flipping a coin to see whether it was heads or tails, and if you won that coin flip, you would move on to the next round.
Right.
Okay? In this contest, there would be a winner.
Okay.
Would there not?
Yes.
There would be a winner, right? Okay. So if we flipped coins with 256 people, one guy would win because someone has to win. Someone has to flip the coins and get heads more than the other guy and win, right? So when you're playing a tournament, you're entering this contest. Okay, this is the format of a tournament. This is how it works, right? There's no secret. That's just what it means to enter an event with hundreds or thousands of people and try and get down to the finish line. Now, you might be better than the person across from you. You might be worse than them. So you might have an advantage. Instead of it being heads or tails, it might be 60-40 in your favor. It might be 40-60 in your favor. If you're playing against better players, you're making mistakes, or you're tilted, So
yes,
let's say it's 60-40 because you're the best player in the tournament. Fine. Great. You still have to win all those times to win the tournament. That is the energy. That's the environment that you are choosing to put yourself in. If that environment isn't something that is serving you, then you shouldn't play. But to go into the the tournament of coin flippers and be tilted that you got heads instead of tails is just insanity. Because you're never going to change how the tournament works. It's impossible. Right? You're never going to be so good that you just win every time. That's impossible. That denies the very essence of what it means to be in a tournament. So
it can be tilted all the time, yeah.
If you can't, if you don't like that sort of variance, if you don't like always being, at the mercy of a lot of that, I would suggest, playing cash games because it's less of that nuance, if you will.
Okay.
There's less of that, right? But in a tournament, if you have to go in accepting that first and foremost, and then say, I'm going to try and get myself to the spot where, I'm the 60%. I want to be the 60% as much as I can. Maybe 70%. Look, even if you're 90%, you still got to win. Even if you're 90% every time, you're still a mathematical underdog to win. Run a 90% favorite 10 times. You're still not going to win. You're a favorite to lose, even if you're 90% every time. If you're gambling 10 times. So it's like you could be the best. It helps to be the best, but you have to be the luckiest to win. You have to have luck. There's just no other way around it. And I think people, in my experience, my professional career and my coaching, that people never overestimate the amount of luck involved. I've never seen it happen. Never. Just never happens. Nobody is ever like as in tune with the actual amount of luck that is involved as the reality. I think, my personal opinion, my experience. I've never really seen someone that's like, you know what, I like totally get it. Like, if you ask someone like, hey, watch any poker interview. Like, hey, what contributed to you winning this tournament? How many people say luck? 0. What's the biggest contributor to anybody in the history of the world winning a poker tournament? Luck. Number 1 factor, every single time. Doesn't mean they don't have skill. It just means that without luck, they can't win. But they just completely, like, disacknowledge that, you know? Like, they just completely, like, brush over that thing that got them 87% of the way there. Like, oh, just that was no big deal. Like, that's just insanity. Like, people just miss it. Like, they take it for granted that, like, they're better than someone. Like, that doesn't matter in an event where luck is the predominating factor to determine your success or your outcome. Read a book called Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. I'm going to type it in the chat. Read this book. It's one of the best books ever written about this subject. It's the best book. Love to have written. It's the best book I've ever written. Excellent book. But I would suggest playing cash games because, you know, tournaments seem to be frustrating. But if you're going to play 4 tournaments and be upset about the result, then, I mean, you're in for a long battle, my friend. Anyway, I don't want to be hard on you. I just want to be realistic because you deserve to have the information to plan accordingly because tournaments are brutal. I don't play them.
Gotcha.
I can't stand losing. I don't play them. By the way, other sports aren't that way. So, Marty, you just turn on your mic, my friend. But hang on, I'll call on you in a sec. Or you could just type in here, Marty. I'll answer you. But I don't want to be hard on you, man. But yeah, it's just the way it is. You're just a little different. So I was going somewhere. I forgot. Anyway, whatever. I talk enough. So if I think about it, I'll tell you. Anyway, I hope that helps. By the way, other sports aren't this way. So you know.
Vegas. So I can just stick to that for now. Oh, I said probably move on to cash games for now instead of tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. I don't blame you. Or go into the tournament and just go in with, you know, the humility that, you know, a lot of it is not out in your control, but you're still going to try your best. You're still going to give it your all, and you're just not going to be as upset about what you can't control. That's kind of like my affirmation every time I go into a tournament. I can only focus on what I can control. If I lose in a spot where I lose, it's like, well, I signed up for this. I paid $100,000 to get here. I'm not going to be upset about the fact that I chose to use my, whatever, 100K buy-in to play in this event, and that's the outcome. I mean, that just doesn't make sense, you know. Like, logically, it's just kind of crazy, right? So, by the way, it's not like this in other sports, so people in poker don't get it. You know, they're like, well, in tennis, you know, Djokovic and Federer, they win every time. Or, like, Patriots always win. You know, like, I mean, there's variance and there's luck in other sports. So, you know, the best basketball team will only win 70% of the time. But, like, at the end of an 82-game season, like, they usually get to the position, you know, without too many standard deviations of where they actually are in terms of in terms of, like, skill set, right? It's rare that, like, a team doesn't reach their long term, you know. But that's a game that has much more edge than poker. And it's a span of time that lasts much longer than one's average tournament career. So if you look at baseball, 162-game season, it's like they play 9 innings 162 times. I mean, it's a lot of time for the better team to sort of supersede and win. Or basketball or tennis, where like the edges are bigger. You know, like the guy who starts a tennis tournament is a massive favorite over the other guy. Sometimes, like, you know, you'll play a tennis tournament one-on-one, and like the guy's like a 6-to-1 favorite. You know, in poker and heads-up tournament, if you're playing someone good, you're like 55-45, right? So the equities are much closer, and it takes, you know, you don't play as many matches. It's harder to reach the long run. People don't realize like how small some of the edges are in tournaments because a lot of your decision-making process is cut off at the knees because of your stack size, right? So the game is played much more close to a solved way when there's 15 big lines. Everybody plays pretty much the same. It's harder to gain a massive edge against the field. So, anyway. All right, Marty has a question. She's typing in chat. He's typing in chat. Anyway. That's a good question. So Marty asks, how do you structure your study time, and what's the difference in your studying between MTTs and cash games? So that's a good question. Okay, so how do I structure my study time? There, I think, and I've talked about this before. Hey Alejandro, what's up, man? So I talked about this before, where I'm much of the believer that the way that you approach poker should be very similar to the way a professional approaches another sport. So because I want to be competing with the best and I want to be amongst them, I'm going to have to model myself after other people that are extremely successful in other industries. So I think that if you look at, I like tennis personally, it's easy to understand, it's a one-on-one game, has very similar elements mentally and that poker does. But you could take any sport. Take football, American football, basketball, whatever, right? So any of these sports all follow the same sort of pattern. In football, they play once a week. In tennis, there's a tournament once every, 2 weeks? Something like that? 3 weeks? So the times that the players are actually competing in a in-game format against actual competition, where there's money at stake or there's prestige at stake, is few and far between the times that those players are actually studying or practicing or working. So it would be ridiculous to assume that in between one tennis tournament and another, like, Roger Federer is just balling on a yacht drinking champagne. Like, he's playing tennis every day. That's what he does. That's why he's the best in the world, right? So it's insane to think that, between Monday and Saturday, these football players just live their life. Like, they don't do anything and they just chase girls. Like, the real good ones are actually serious about their game, and they're everybody's practicing every day at 7 a.m. and they're working out twice a day and doing drills and watching tape and studying and memorizing pass plays and all this random stuff, right? So they're running numbers. They're figuring out. A lot of sports are about numbers too. They're crunching numbers and they're saying, okay, what's the percentage of the time the team throws the ball on fourth down, and how do we adjust to that defense? Like, all these sort of technical permutations they're going through, and they have, they have a strategy coach, they have a defensive coach, they have an offensive coach. Tennis players have a nutritionist, they have a mental coach, they have a technical coach. This is the level of severity that professionals in other sports are taking to reach the top. So it's not like I created some genius formula. I just watched the people that really inspire me, that I like, and I said, well, they're reaching the top of their industry. So what can I learn from someone that's much better than me, maybe if it's not even in my sport, about how to succeed? And I think watching the other players really gives you credence. It gives credence to my approach that I take towards poker, and it also gives you an idea of what the best players are doing. Even if it's not in poker, even if you can't see that in poker, you can see it in other sports, and that's how people excel. So that's my long answer to your question. Like, the difference, how do I spend my time studying? It's all that philosophy applied to poker. For example, I'm here. I'll tell you something about myself. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I'm working with Josh Beckley, who is 2015 November Niner. He'll be at the final table November 8th. We'll be in Vegas together. So we're here, and I'm coaching him. And so every day we're doing something, and I'm giving him exercises, and I'm helping him get the most prepared possible for the main event final table. So, what does that mean? Well, we're doing on and off the table things. So I believe there's two ways to improve at poker. You can be better at playing poker, which means you could be technically sound or strategically intelligent, or you could be a better poker player, which means you could be more concentrated, more focused, more disciplined, more patient, more intimidating, more sharp, more prepared. So we're working on both of these fronts, and we're attacking them every single day. So every day he's doing something to better himself at both of these areas. So let's say, take yesterday, for example. We did complete health and diet thing with my wife, who's a health coach, nutritionist, named Umbra Meda. You could see on littlebitesofbeauty.com. She's, really talented. She knows everything about health and cooking. She's Italian. She's, the best. So she has him on a whole diet plan that he's following, where he's lost 14 pounds in a week, I mean, in a month, because it's important to be in your best shape possible when you're playing 8-hour sessions. He goes to the gym twice a day. He works on his mental game, and then at night we'll do some of the stuff where we'll do him better at playing poker. We'll work on strategy. We'll watch the 2014 main event. We'll study ranges. We'll crunch numbers. We'll devise plans for every single player we're playing against. We'll look at every single situation and extrapolate that to him and his chip stack versus opponents. How is he going to compete against them? We'll do pretty much everything that another team would do if they were preparing for the Super Bowl. And I think that's what, if you really want to reach the top, if you really want to compete with the best, you got to do what they're doing. And you got to find edges in that way. So I think it's a personal example of what some of the things we're doing together. It's some of the things I do with some of my clients, depending on where they want to go with their careers. But it's also what I do personally. I mean, all these things I'm doing with him are things that I do every time I get ready for a big tournament or before I go to Macau to play some high-stakes cash games or Vegas or whatever it is. And that's just part of my daily routine and who I am, So I think those things are all really important. And the difference between MTTs and cash, I mean, I guess aside from the trivial things like you watch MTT tables instead of cash tables, is the just the types of hand reviews that you do, and so applying different mechanics of the game, like I talked about earlier, towards your situation that you're going to find in tournaments and the situation you're going to find in cash games. And I even like to do things where I take the same hand. Let's say I watch a hand at the main event final table. We watched last night, and we'll say, okay, how would I play this hand if I had 20 big blinds? How would I play this hand if I had 30 big blinds? How would I play the hand if the situations were reversed? If I was in the villain's seat instead of the hero's seat? Or what would I do if I was in a cash game? Or how would I play this hand if the opponents were different? And so I'll use all these permutations as exercises that I might be experiencing. And the numbers that you have to run in a cash game are much different than you have to run in a tournament because there's different factors to consider. And so I'll do some of the deeper work with different programs in cash games and tournaments. That's really important. I think that the preparation part is really important. People like to play. People spend a lot of time playing poker. Don't spend a lot of time. I hear someone. This is not good. Someone's got to mute their mic. Anyway, people spend a lot of time playing poker. People spend a lot of time in poker. And they're like, oh, I play 40 hours a week. It's like I might tell someone I play 40 hours a week, but the actual time I play is probably less than that because I'm working. So anyway. All right, Alejandro, I know you had a question about a hand. Sorry, it's hard to cover that in here, so I axed the idea of hands. But if you have another question, you're welcome. Otherwise, the other guys that were in here earlier, I'm going to open it up to you guys first because you guys were waiting. You were Oscar's. Yeah. You were what's up? You have a question. Hey, man.
What's up?
Where are you from, buddy?
I'm from the Netherlands.
Awesome.
Yes, place to be. No, it's awesome to talk to you, man. I love your playing style and everything.
Thanks, man. I like the Netherlands. Cool place.
Yeah, my question I just thought of really is about I'm only playing like real small stakes, just like a few dollars, multi-tables and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just want to know what your advice is, like how to improve mentally and just like also in stakes, how to improve to higher stakes and how to keep a positive, mental, keep positive thinking throughout moving up in stakes, because it's sometimes it's difficult to keep a positive mindset because, you need to compete with so many players to become, better. So.
Yeah, I think I was watching a TED Talk about this earlier too. I like watching TED Talks. About something that just reminded me of this too. I think that in poker, like it's kind of like the same that people experience in their everyday life. If you're like a startup entrepreneur or something, I think that people overestimate the competition and they underestimate themselves. I think that's a general. I mean, there are exceptions. Like, there's some people that are like, "Oh, I'm a great poker player," and it's like, "No, dude, you're delusional. You're not good." But like, I mean, I think that you see that a lot. You see people that everybody thinks they're better than they are at poker and stuff. But I think that like the actual that might be it's true for some people that don't study the game, because on the surface, when you first start doing something, it seems easy and it's hard to appreciate or understand the skill involved. So if you're like, and true professionals make things look easy, right? You watch, Tom Brady play football, and you're like, oh, he just stands there and throws. Like, everybody makes it look easy because they're so freaking talented. It looks easy for tennis players to get the ball because they are fast. See, someone's got to turn off their mic. This is so tough. Christopher's like spaghetti in the microwave or something. Anyway, I think it's you. Anyway, so they make it look easy because they're talented professionals. So I think that the tendency for people have is to overestimate the competition, and I think that happens like not for new beginners, right? If you know nothing about something, you're like, oh, that like, how can that be a sport, or how can that be skill? Like the first time you play poker, you're like, well, I could do that, and then you play for a little while, and then you're like, shit, like there's actually this guy's like really, really good. Or maybe if your first meeting with a good player, you watch someone on TV, and you're like, damn, like that guy, like he can like see the other people's cards, it's crazy. So then you're like, wow, I actually start to appreciate and understand the nuances and the skill involved in the game. At that point, it's easy to think like, wow, these other guys are like so light years ahead of me, and it's so hard to catch up to them. And I think that when you have the awareness that you don't know everything, that is like the biggest gift you can give yourself. Because it's the guy that doesn't understand the difference between skill and him and someone else that's just drawing dead. Like, he can never get better because he's just too close-minded to even understand that there's a way for someone to be better than them. And a lot of people go through that point in their career, or a lot of people win a big tournament and then they have an ego and then they're like, they've learned everything there is to learn. So if your mind's ever closed, you're screwed. That's number one. Your mind, my friend, is not, because you already understand that there are people that are talented around you. So that's good, but it's a double-edged sword, because what happens is when you get to that point, then it helps you, because you're like, okay, well, now I need to learn more, but then you're always at this point where like you always understand that there's something more to learn. So like the famous line from Socrates, like, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. Like that's like just even like one of the, I think it was Socrates, or I might be butchering that. I think it's Socrates. Like, even one of the wisest philosophers of all time like has this realization that he's like, always humbled. So you don't want to take it to the point where you now suffer from paralysis or inaction because you're overestimating the competition. Because most of the people that have talent, it's actually ironic, most of the people that have real talent aren't taking action. Whereas it's the people that are like delusional that are in there like, oh, I'm the best. They're just delusional, they're in there. And so what happens is that you have oftentimes people that shouldn't make it from their raw talent perspective that are making it because they're taking action. And you have other people that are really talented. And you probably know people like this. All of you guys watching, you probably have that friend that's like, dude, you would be so friggin' good at that I would pay for your services, whatever. And they're like, yeah, one day, and then they die. And it's like, dude, like that guy might have actually been successful, but the difference between that person and the other guy is the other guy put his foot forward and put himself out there. He was willing to take a chance. He was willing to be wrong. He was willing to be called an idiot. He was willing for other people to say, poker's just a game, you're wasting your time. He was willing to stand that pressure, and then they give themselves a chance to succeed. But those people that actually have talent, it's sad because they overestimate the competition and they underestimate themselves. That's why there's so many people in the world with a great friggin' idea. Like, how many great ideas have you heard? You're like, dude, that could be $1 million idea. It's like, I have so many $1 million ideas. I've heard so many. But it's like the guy that take action is like, he starts Uber. Like, how many people thought of Uber before Uber? Like 400 million? We're like, dude, why isn't there a car that can like come to where you are? It's like, oh, someone already thought of that. I'm not going to do anything. And then this one guy, Travis, is like, dude, fuck that. Nobody's actually done anything. I'm going to create this app, and I'm going to be worth $17 billion. Like, he took action. So don't be the guy that's sitting there like, everybody else is better than me, and then like, you're just not doing anything. Because it's like, it's easy to think that everyone's better than you because they're playing higher than you, but it's like not true. Like, everybody's just could be a fish too. Just because they're playing higher doesn't mean they're better. It just means they might be the coolest guy. So that's the big one I see. I see it all the time in like aspiring entrepreneurs, aspiring business owners, college kids with ideas that just whatever, just Yeah, whatever. Poker players, like maybe not. I don't know. Poker players in general happens a lot.
Well, thanks a lot, Alex. It helps a lot for me. Thanks.
Sure, man. Just keep on fighting, dude. Like, don't. You got to believe in yourself, because if you don't, then who else is going to? You know, how am I going to believe in you if you don't believe in you? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to face a lot of doubt, especially doing something esoteric like poker, where you're already fighting an uphill battle because you're not going to be a rocket scientist or a medical doctor or an engineer, where people are like, yeah, go, fight, do your normal thing, So it's hard. You're going to deal with a lot of BS, and you got to be prepared for that to get what you want,
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Sure. Yeah, you guys can hang in here. I think we got a few more spots, so don't rush out. Okay. Hayachu or Oscaris? Oscars, you got a question? You guys are hanging in here. Hayachu, go ahead. What's up, man?
Hi, I'm Oscars. I'm from
Oscar, go ahead. There you go, man. I'm glad you jumped in. Tell everybody something. I know a little bit about you because we talked via email, but tell everybody else something.
Yeah, so I'm Oscars. Yeah, I'm from Latvia originally, but for the last 4 years I'm living in UK. In poker I'm for like 5 years, but like a year ago I decided to really commit myself for poker. And I'm used to play online. I played 9 months, and now I moved to spin and goes, which includes a lot of variants. And I played some tournaments live, some good results, but not played enough to know how good I am. And like, really, my question is, how you know when you are ready to move, like, play for a living?
Okay. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so a few things. I'm pretty sure I have a video on this on my YouTube channel. So check out my YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's like, so you think you want to go pro or something like that. I'm just checking out my YouTube channel. It's not under the Hand of the Day series. It's under like the other pro tips series. I have a few people that asked questions about this, and I made them YouTube videos. So definitely check that out for all you watching that want more information on it. Oscars, definitely check that out too. You can go to my YouTube, youtube.com/Alec Torelli, or just Google my name on YouTube. You'll find it. So I think for me, I will tell you my personal truth, and hopefully you will get something out of it. I was, how old was I? I started playing poker when I was 16, so that was 12 years ago. I thought in the beginning it would be cool to be a pro. I remember reading Phil Hellmuth's book, okay, Play Poker Like the Pros. I read his book. In his book, he says, in my college year, during my second year of college or something, his like aha moment was that he was making similar money to the professor. For example, he had a 50K bankroll, or he made 50K, or he made 20K, or something like that, where like he had this security moment where he realized that he had an opportunity that was as big as the person that was teaching him in terms of monetary value, and he was like, wow, that gave him confidence, that gave him security, that told him something about how he was going on, right? So I remember thinking to myself, hey, that would be something that, okay, if this is Phil Hellmuth and this is impossible, then somewhere around that is a good benchmark. So I'm 16 there, and I have my like $72 bankroll, and I would just work on poker all the time. I knew that I wanted to try poker because I knew I followed what Mark Cuban says, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, is like, follow your energy. You don't really have to think too hard about what you want to do or the woman you want to be with, because you should just you just follow your energy. If you find yourself always attracted to this person, it's pretty easy to just gather that this is something that you want to have happen. In poker, it was very much the same for me. I remember I went to SMU for my first semester of college. I went there on a trip, and we went. This is just one of the million examples I could give you about my love for affinity for poker when I was young, and still to this day. But I remember we were on like a trip, and there was like an event that was going on at the campus at the time, and it's like you could go there and meet orientation and meet new people and whatever. And I was always really social. I talk a lot. You guys see that. I like people. I do these things for free. I like being around people. I would sit in the lobby of my hotel at like 10:30 on a Friday night instead of going around like chasing girls, whatever you're supposed to do when you're 18. And I would like deal out poker hands and like think about, you know, what I should do in one situation or the other. And I would like be reading like a book about a novel about poker that some guy wrote and be like, oh my God, you know, fantasizing would be so cool to be one of these people. So I knew, like, had these signals to myself that I knew that this is what I wanted to be doing. That was step number one. Like, I knew I had the drive to do this, and I knew I had the passion to do it, and if, like, I could only find a way to make it work, that was where my mindset was. There was no real other, like, option for me. It never really crossed my mind. Like, there wasn't really ambiguity about what I wanted, and that was, like, the first thing, right? But you can't always get what you want. You know, I'd like to go to the moon. You know, like, there's a lot of things you might want that are unattainable. I don't think being a professional poker player is one of them. So I would play, and I slowly noticed in my playing that if I was being honest, that the people around me, this happened in my home games when I was young, that I stood out as one of the better players in my home games. There was me and one other guy that I think stood out, and we would regularly win. And, you know, this gave me confidence in the little social circle I was playing in. And then when I went to the casino for the first time and I was 18, and I was like, oh my God, these guys must be so good. You know, and now you would walk into that game, or anyone objective about poker would walk into that game and be like, you know, there's a lot of not great players here, right? You're playing like 1-2 no limit on a Sunday. Like, they're probably not like the best players at this casino. They're just like in a small Indian casino outside of California. And so I went there, and my first reaction was like, oh my God, like, this guy raised, he must have aces, or he must, like, you know something, genius or whatever. And then slowly you play with them, you start to realize, wait, these guys are human. They make mistakes. Like, hey, I might actually have played this hand better than this person. And so I felt like I had that feedback continually throughout my career. And there was a time when I was in college, my first year at SMU, when I realized that I was in a very similar position, or maybe slightly better position than the position I read about Phil being in when he dropped out of school. And I was like, well, I might not be, you know, best in the world, but, like, certainly if he got to that point by being here, then I'm in a spot where, hey, maybe this is the right time. And, you know, and I was also thinking to myself, well, if I'm not willing to make this commitment to poker now, like, what am I actually waiting for? It's a little arrogant, a little ridiculous to think I'm going to be in a better spot than someone like that. So, you know, if I'm not willing to take this leap of faith now, then maybe I'm at the point where I'm waiting for too much. You know, there's enough doors that have already opened. I have enough positive signs that hit me back in the world. I told you some of them. And if I'm not taking this leap of faith, then maybe I'm waiting too long. So you don't want to be, like, reckless and be like, hey, like, marry me on the first date. But, you know, if you're dating a girl for 5 years and you're living with her, it's like, if you haven't made up your mind, then, like, what are you waiting for? The 6th year that you're living with a girl to figure it out if you like her? I mean, shit. It's like, it doesn't take that long. I mean, I test drove my first car, and I bought it that day. It didn't take me that long to figure out if I like a car. It didn't take me that long to figure out if I liked I knew I liked my wife the second I met her, you know. And I don't feel like poker, there should be, you know, when something is right, you don't really have to think too much and force it. And if you notice that the only thing holding you back is really, like, a fear-based thing, then I think it's time. One thing that really helped me was to try and define my worst-case scenario and be like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You know, I'm sitting there in my freshman year of college. Like, if I drop out and I play poker for a year, and, you know, I was lucky, I guess, in a way that I found poker at a time when my life situation was such that it didn't cost me much to take a shot. I was 18, single. I could always come back to school. And if I lost the whatever 40 whatever K I had saved, or 50K or whatever, then whatever. I'll be 19 and broke, and everybody else is 19 and broke. So what's the difference? Like, at least I tried. Played poker for a year in my life, which was, like, that would be cool. It would be meaningful to me. So, I mean, a lot of it depends on your life situation, too. You know, if you're married with 2 kids, it's like you have a little bit more to lose. You got to be more conservative. you're probably not in that spot, but everybody I know watching this is in a different spot. So those are some of the factors I would consider. I was like the right place at the right time for me to make this work, but I also had a lot of signals. But the most important thing that I told you earlier is that, I took action. So, what's your worst case scenario? Define that. If you're comfortable with that, then it's a big win if you're comfortable with your worst case scenario. That's an exercise I always like to do when I'm taking risks or making investments or whatever it is. So, hope that helps.
Definitely helped. Thank you very much.
Sure. Hayachu, what's up?
Oh, can I add something to that?
Yeah, sure. Whoever said that, sure, go ahead.
It's Alejandro. Listen, I don't know how old you guys are, but like he was saying, if you're gonna do it now that you're young, I don't know, young 20s, you should do it. I feel my window actually closed. I have 2 daughters. It's very hard for me to, take a trip and play a nice tournament, because every time I do, I leave my business, I leave my family, and every time I hit it's not a great amount of money, like 15, 12, 13, $18,000, whatever the cash. When I come back home, I mean, it's like, let's take out these credit cards, and I don't even have a bankroll. I just decide I'm going to go to this tournament. I go here, I go there. If I win 18, 15, 14,000, the wife takes it to pay all the dues. So do what you got to do now that you're young. Don't be afraid. It's like Torelli is saying, this is the moment. I mean, I'm 46, and I think my window closed already, because I got to take care of the kids, and I have a family. So I see a lot of young people there. You should try jump now. After it's too late, it's going to be very hard later on. So that's all I need to say.
Great advice, Alejandro, and thank you for that. Yeah, so I think that's really true. It never gets easier because your responsibilities always increase.
I have a kid actually, so it's not that easy to me.
Yeah, and you kind of have to be realistic with what you can do there, and what that situation is. So you're gonna need to be a little more planned and prepared than someone else. Someone needs to mute their mic because I'm hearing myself. Thank you. Okay, Hiyachu, I know you have a question. First, Marty said, can you walk us through your thought process at a hand, like street by street, what process you are using step by step? Yeah, I have a YouTube channel that I update literally every week with something called the hand of the day. So go on my YouTube, alectorelli.com, or my website, alectorelli.com, and you will see there's literally a hand every single week that someone sends me, like yourself. I think how Jen sent me, I might have even reviewed your hand. A lot of you guys send me hands, or I'll tell you hands that I've played from around the world in a big tournament or the games in Macau or whatever, and I will walk you through step by step everything I think about the hand. So go over to my site, check it out, or go to my YouTube. You'll see this. Or if you're watching this later, subscribe to my YouTube and look at the other channels. I have new videos come out every week, at least once a week. So Marty, definitely take advantage of that. How, John, your turn, man. Sorry you've been patiently waiting. Tell me, what's up, buddy?
Is it me?
Yeah, I know you're from Macau, but tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Hey.
I play cash games. My question to you is about live game and online games.
Yeah, let's do it.
How to balance them? Because I do play a lot of online 6max to practice, mostly, and try to get some good profit from live games because they are softer. But then last time we talked about we should try improving on the skill side, but not playing too many hands at the same time, like 6 tables, 8 tables. So,
right.
Well, on the other hand, we will be playing fewer hands and not practicing enough. With the same, well, time is the only limiting factor here. Let's say I have 10 hours today to play online, try to practice, improve the reading skills and stuff. And if I played 4 tables or 8 tables, is up to me.
Yeah.
And I can learn. I can train my procedural memory better by playing more hands quicker, or I can play I can train my the conscious mind better by playing fewer tables. So
I
you
understand
see,
what you're saying. Okay,
yeah.
so for everybody that got lost, I didn't, but I think a few people might have got lost.
Oh.
Basically, what I think you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're saying basically I have time to dedicate to online poker and live poker. When I play online, it gets confusing as to what is the best approach. Should I play less tables and concentrate more on like the super intricate details of each and every decision, or should I play more tables and try and get more experience under my belt to make more like just more experiences, more different situations that I could use those to like be familiar with every single possible thing that happens to me. What's the best way to improve? What should I be doing? Is that what your question is? Okay, so
Yeah, sort of.
sort of. Okay, well let's sort of answer that, and then if I miss something, come back to me, all right?
All right.
So, all right. So I always tell my clients, I have a lot of people that play online. I always tell them that if you want to solely improve your analytical thinking in poker, you want to improve your creativity in poker, you want to get better at hand reading in poker, you will be better served by playing less tables. There is a point in which the additional table that you add, there's like a tipping point, there's a straw that broke the camel's back, right? Where if you add that next table, right, you will lose more concentration on the former tables than the equity will get you at the additional table that you add. In other words, this new table you add, maybe it's the fifth table. The fifth table you add will gain you a win rate at that fifth table if you're a good player, but it will take away your win rate from the other four tables, right? So a lot of online players like to push it to the edge where they play the most amount of tables possible to still have a win rate. That's the going strategy. That's the normal, this is what I do. This is the best way to get my hourly rate high enough. They basically find what is the most amount of tables I could play to still be a winner, or more practically, what's the best number of tables to play to maximize my hourly win rate? Because if they play 15 tables and they're winning a half a big blind per 100, they're going to be winning smaller than if they played 10 tables and were winning 2 big blinds per 100. Those additional 5 tables kill their win rate at the former 10. There's a sweet spot in there, okay? So finding your sweet spot, and you should measure this out. You should use an online poker tracker system like Poker Tracker 4 or Hold'em Manager 2, whatever, and figure out what amount of tables nets me the highest hourly rate, all other variables being equal, meaning I'm playing the same amount of players, the same stack depth, same size game. That is work you should do on your own. You guys are smart. You know how to figure that out. But that's the type of work you should be doing. And that should be, when I play online poker for money, that's what I do. I play that sweet spot. So I play 6 tables of 6 max poker because that's the most I could do to get me the highest hourly win rate. I figured out all the math, and that's where I win the most money per hour. Great. If you want to make money, do that. If you want to get better at poker, there is another tipping point at which your ability to make every single decision, I'm talking about like even if it gets folded in the small, like 2 people limp and you're in the small blind and you're deciding on whether to complete the small blind or raise or fold. If you can't make every single little trivial decision and not and in doing those decisions, if you cannot do that without missing anything that happened, the speed at which your opponent raised pre-flop, or the way that he was thinking on the turn, which led you to think that maybe he was debating double barreling instead of betting for value, or whatever it is, those little intricacies that are hard to quantify, but that you pick up on because of your tune with the game that you're playing, right? If you miss that, if you miss any of that, then you're playing too many tables. That will happen at a much smaller sample size of tables than it will if you're playing for money. So I think personally the amount of tables that I could play or that I see generally is like 3, maybe 4, definitely not 5, maybe 2, you know, like 2, 3, 4 is like right around there. I mean 4 if it's like all the same players and the same size game and whatever, you know, like maybe. But I would like to play like 2 tables. If I'm like studying with someone or doing coaching with someone or trying to improve, I like to have time to like think about all the hands afterwards, maybe run some number calculations on the side, like do other things that help me improve other than just being forced to take my energy away from improvement to take my energy to making that next decision. I don't even have time to kind of like reflect on the hand that just happened. You know, I like that about live poker, that I have time to reflect in between hands. I have time to make adjustments. I have time to be like, well, and you don't even have that much time in live poker. Like the hand is over, you have like a minute. It's not that much time. But like you have some time to be like, okay, this hand, I think this player is going to open light, and if this guy opens, I'm going to 3-bet him light, and this guy is probably not going to open, or this guy's going to 3-bet that guy, so I'm just going to flat call because he's in the big blind. Like I have time to think about all that stuff, you know? So like if you're missing those nuances when you're playing online poker, then you're playing too many tables. I would encourage you, most people, in the same way that most people spend too much time studying, too much time playing and not enough time studying, most people play too many tables too often, and they only play poker for money, and they don't play poker to get better. Sharpening your tools is as important as using them. The sharper they are, the more they cut. Abraham Lincoln said, if I was given an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend 45 minutes sharpening the axe. Most people spend 55 minutes just, you know, they spend 1 minute sharpening and 59 just hammering away, and then they're sweating and dying. Smart guy spends 45 minutes sharpening. That's what he does. That's what you should do. All right. Okay. I got a few more questions from you guys, and then I got to switch over to get some people on YouTube. Yeah, Chu.
Follow-up?
Thanks, man. I'm going to try and get to...
okay.
I'll try and get back to you if I have extra time. But I want to make sure that Sabio gets in here. Sabio, what's up, man? You have a question? I know you just joined, so I'm trying to get other people in here. I know last time we were full, so... Alejandro, if you have a question as well, jump in. You made a cool comment earlier, but if there's something I can help answer here for you as well, I'd be happy to do that. Okay.
I'm okay for that. Just listening and soaking up.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate your comments. I know it was a great advice that you gave to Oscars as well, so thank you for that. Cool. So, all right. Did you have a follow-up question, Piachu? Or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was reading this book, How to Be a Poker Player. Hasib, somebody. Well, he was talking about something very interesting about the brain structure, like training the conscious thinking is one side, and then training the act muscle, kind of like the performance part, is the other side.
What muscle?
I can't remember the exact name of the essence of it is that sometimes some people are very good at analyzing the hand in forums and places like that and talk about the hands. They are very clear about the ranges, the equity, and everything. But then when they actually go play, they can perform as if they are analyzing the hand. So they are at this level when they are like playing poker on paper, and at this level they are playing poker at real time.
Right.
So
I totally agree. Totally agree.
So I think a lot of times when we study, we are training the paper level. We are not actually training the play level.
Absolutely.
So what he's talking about is what I was trying to get to on my last question was that if I play more hands in a short period of time, I will definitely train more for the play muscles.
Yes.
And if I play fewer tables, I will train more of my paper poker playing muscles, which I can do a lot off the table already.
Right.
So we are trading, kind of balancing how much time we spend on the different sides of muscles.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So
great.
I think I'm at the point where I maybe I study too much and not play enough. So sometimes after the hand, you can clearly know that I make a mistake here after the hand, like right after the hand, a lot of
Absolutely.
times, right? So a lot of times, I think there is a balance on how to train both sides of the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get it. I think that's a really good point. I think that like so often, I mean, every poker player should really kind of like notice this internally. When you're watching, people like to be, people are really critical too in some ways, where they like are watching poker and it's so easy when you could see all the cards, number one, and also when you're objective, you're distanced from the emotional aspect of the game. You're not thinking about all this leveling thing. You're seeing both players clearly, and you're like this bird's eye view of overlooking a situation, and you're like, hey, well, this is, so easy to make these decisions when I could see the cards and the announcers talking, and everything makes so much sense. And then they go to the table and they're like, well, wait a minute, like, wait a minute, like, why was that so easy and now it's like so hard? And it's kind of like, when you see, I mean, part of it is when you see people do it on TV, some of them are really talented, it seems like easier because they just make it look easy. Other times it's like the distance that you take from the game gives you a clearer perspective. You're not worried about all the external BS. You're not worried about what other people are going to think, or what happens if you lose this stack, or how this affects your bankroll, if you're on a losing streak, or whatever it is, right? There's all these like ego factors at play when you're playing live poker or online poker that you have to deal with that cloud judgment. They take away from the decision-making process. They take away from your ability to play your best game. They're distractions. So it took me a long time in my career. I think most people are always better at conceptually understanding what to do. I talk poker with a lot of people and they sound like competent, but when they go to play, they make mistakes, or they don't implement that ability, or they talk themselves into a decision, or they level themselves or something like that. And so I think it's really important to work on implementing the conceptual knowledge that you know, and that's where the playing poker comes in. I think that too often people go to play poker, they just sort of like play, and I think you really need to attack the times that you go to the casino and play poker, and they need to be premeditated. There needs to be a game plan for your playing. So it's much different to go to. It's the difference in preparation between going to a game of pickup basketball on Sunday with friends, or being the Lakers and going there with a game plan on how to win against your opponent on game day. Like, it's just a totally different level of preparation. And when you take that intention to the poker table, it's much, much different, because now what you're doing is you're actively trying to break down your analytical thought process into clear, concise steps that you can follow actionably each time. This was a big challenge for me, and I think coaching really helped me a lot, because people would ask me questions like, hey, why'd you play this hand this way? And in my mind, it makes sense. Like, I know my little mojo. I know my motion. I know how to do what I do because I do it. It just, after a while, it just sort of happens quickly. You don't even necessarily think about what you're thinking about. You just do it. Coaching really helped me. Writing this book, I know how, you just bought it recently. I'm going to be sending it out to you soon. The 4 Steps to Beating Anyone at Poker really helped me, because it was like, how do I convey what I know to somebody else in a way that's clear, concise, and easy for them to follow and understand? How do I give someone a blueprint for making decisions that they can easily, conceptually, and practically follow every time they're at the poker table, so that they don't actually make a mistake? It's like, a lot of people know conceptually what to do. How do they access the process to make that a reality every single time? And so that was my challenge in writing that book, which you could get on my website, that I think is really good. I'm really proud of, and also in my coaching. And so I think for me, like, talking, and why I'm telling you this is because I think what would be valuable for you is to try and put yourself in an authoritative spot to help someone else through their game plot process. So it helped me a lot, coaching, to understand exactly the process that I went through, and to make that clear and simple for other people to understand, so that they could learn from it and win more money and better their poker games. It might help you in the same way to be like, what should another person be doing? In the same way that it's really easy for you to understand what the correct play is when you're watching that guy on TV, and it's easy for you to, like, conceptually give the correct answer for what to do when you're watching a hand of poker on a forum, or when someone asks you a question about poker, it's easy for you to respond. The key is translating that into your own poker game. So what I meant when I said you should go to the table with actionable steps is blueprinting that and writing it out and getting clear what the process is that you use on a macro level for making those decisions. You know, and that's what I really tried to do with four-step poker, and that's why I think it's really effective, because it's much more than just like, hey, this is one hand of poker that I'm playing, or this is how you should play this specific hand of poker. It's how do you conceptually think about the decision process itself and apply that to every single situation that you're in versus any type of opponent that you're going to be facing. And so those types of exercises really helped me get that book to where it is today, and it really helped me in my coaching, teaching other people how to do this and how to get through their own process of improving. And so I think for you, you're lucky you're in Macau, you're around other poker players, or for the other guys in there, treat yourself like, you know, you're advising someone else that's an innocent bystander about what to do. And that'll help you give them, you know, clear advice. It's going to help you formulate your own thoughts, because now you're forced to put them on paper. You're forced for someone else. In writing my book, I'm forced to have someone else on the other side of the world. You're in Macau, some of the other guys in Singapore that just bought it. He has to read my book and understand exactly what I'm thinking in every hand that I play, and he has to take that information and apply it to his own game. So I have to be really, really, really clear, right? I have to be easy to follow. I have to be accurate. So force yourself to do that exercise for yourself, and it might help you take that application process to your own poker game. I think it'll help. It helped me. So, all right, Sabio, if you have a question, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to YouTube, and I'm wrapping up. I'm going to be out of here in a few minutes. Let's see. I had a few questions on YouTube that I wanted to answer too. All right. So, anyway, thank you guys for joining. This was cool. I had a lot of fun with these. So, let's see. I got a cool question from RP on YouTube here, under this chat. He says, okay, he says a bit off topic, but I assume you eat mega healthy all the time. Do you think there is a clear-cut way of how to eat healthy, or the proper answer will depend on your own body since each human digests foods differently, or do you think multiple things help you find the right food for you? So I think that, I'm not like a super qualified nutritionist, so I'm not going to I think it's much less important to talk specifically about one type of food, but I think what's actually important that this question addresses, that goes beyond like simply eating or whatever it is how the things you're doing affect your ability to play your best at the table. And that's much more of a broad approach to this sort of question. It's a much more practical standpoint that you should be taking to understand yourself and what's going to get you in the best shape possible to play your best. So for me personally, you hit it on the head. Food is a big one. Diet, exercise, sleep, those things are really, really important for me, and they play a big factor in getting me into the best shape possible to play my best poker on a game day. So what I've engineered over the years is I've worked really hard on game days for myself, days that I go to the casino to play poker. I engineer a process that gets me into the best shape possible, the most prepared for the game I'm going to play. It's a marriage of different ingredients. It's a mixture of studying and strategy-based things. It's a mixture of a little bit of inspiration, things that get me excited about playing poker and challenging myself to compete. It's a bit of intention, things I'm going to focus on or work on, and then it's a lot of other things that have to do with getting me physically prepared for the game, like sleep, eating, and exercise. So I have this cocktail of different things that really works well for me, and I put them in order, and I make sure that routine happens every time I go to the game. I talked a lot today about being similar to other athletes whom you want to be like and modeling yourself after them. If you look at a sports team, I can guarantee you that on game day there is a routine or ritual that they go through. They do this for two reasons. They do it because it's the thing that gets them in the best shape possible for the game. They also do it because they have their mind on bigger things rather than just like the little trivialities of life that you have to worry about. Barack Obama has two different ties. He has a red tie and a blue tie. And every day he picks one, and then the next day he picks the other. And he does this because he has big decisions to make, and he doesn't want his attention to be drawn away from the problems and the things that he deals with in the real world to be taken away on trivial things, like what color tie should he wear? What should he have for breakfast? So on game days, you should have cleared everything else off your schedule to not be preoccupied with other things that you have to do. For me, that's really important. For me, it's also important to eat a certain way. I function the best when I eat really light, clean foods. I do this every day, but specifically on game day, it's even that much more important to be more fine-tuned and more prepared. It's imperative to me that I go to the gym on game day. I will not play poker if I don't go to the gym. I don't remember the last time I played poker on a day where I didn't work out. That doesn't really ever happen. I don't let it happen because I engineer days that get me in the best shape to play my best poker. It helps me think better if I do high-intensity cardio, specifically on game days. Weightlifting helps on other days for whatever, muscle building and confidence. I like it. But on game days, I like doing cardio because it releases endorphins and serotonin, and I feel good. But I learned all these things by being an expert on myself and experimenting over the years with what really gets me into the best shape possible. So I think that's really, really important. And RP, while the food question specifically is interesting, I mean, sure, I could talk about my diet and stuff like that, but what's much more important is, what's going to get you into the best shape, however you want to define that word, possible to be there on game day and to win. So that's something that I think pros are doing. It's something that I talk a lot about in my video course, 4-Step Poker. You can find it on alectorelli.com, just on the right side there. That's a lot about being a better poker player. It's about getting yourself in the best mindset, the best shape, the most prepared possible to win at the table. So I told you I attack poker on two fronts. One of them is strategy, and one of them is being better at, being a better poker player. And that's really what it's about. And it starts here. So a lot of 4-Step Poker covers this thing and gets you in the best shape to be your best self. I think that's really, really important. Yeah, you'll see it in sports, man. Like, so many times you'll see talented people that aren't executing their talent because, their head's not in it, or they're frustrated, or they're tilted, or they're not focused, or they're not consistent. And it's like, the best player is the most consistent one. So it's a huge, huge part of your game. So easy to play well on certain days, and then on other days, to lose it. If you play well for a week, and then the 8th day you go to the casino and lose everything that you earned on that one day, sure, you're a great poker player technically, like what Hao Jun talked about. You have this capacity to be amazing, but if you're not executing because you're not mentally there, you're not in great shape, or you're not whatever, at my rate of things, then you're giving up edge and you're losing. So I think that's huge. That's a great question. It touches on a bigger subject that I think is much more important. So let's see here. A few more comments on YouTube. Oh no, comments are disabled. Sorry. I had a few more comments here I wanted to answer for you guys too. Try to get everybody in here. I'm reading through these. I bookmarked a few that I wanted to talk about, but now I don't know where they are. Rod, too, I just noticed you joined. If you have a question, go ahead, man. I had to mute you because your mic was loud, but just type in chat and I'll unmute you. So happy to get to you as well. Oh no, I can't find the comments on this YouTube anymore. Oh no. Okay, here we go. Sure, you're a great poker player technically. Sorry. Technology is obviously not my best thing. Okay, how did I first start my bankroll? By Abstory 6 minutes ago. Okay, so I'll tell you something about myself. When I was 16, I would pass out flyers, like little poster flyers for my parents' company and a real estate company and whatever, and I made money doing this, and I saved up small amounts. And what I did after is, I would just play in home games for very small amounts of money. And it wasn't until I caught a break playing online, I deposited $50 or whatever, I think once or twice, And one of the times I played a $30 buy-in tournament, and I got first for like 2,200. And so that was one thing that really like catapulted my confidence, and my bankroll at the time was in high school, to allow me to play decent games, so bigger games. I mean, in high school, that was like a life-changing amount of money. And this happened several times throughout the beginning parts of my career, where I would play mostly tournaments in the beginning of my career, and so I would kind of bounce back and forth, where I would go. A lot of you might have noticed this progression in tournaments, where you go down, 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 and then boom, you hit cash, and then you win back 5 or 6 buy-ins or whatever. Down, 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 boom, maybe you make the final table and you have a good score. So I would notice this progression online quite often when I played tournaments, and it wasn't super stable, but it always felt like a big score was around the corner. And I think that if I had to do it, why I'm telling you this is because I think that it gives credence to the idea that some of your money, should be allocated towards tournaments, because they give you that opportunity to make a lot of money, and they give you the opportunity to catapult your bankroll to places that it couldn't be if you were to grind disciplined poker and cash games. In cash games, it's great to keep stability and to outweigh the variance that you experience in tournaments. So I like to have both. If you're work hard at your game, you're talented at both. I think that it's a good balance to have, because it gives you stability on one side on the cash game to bring money in on a regular basis, and then it gives you the opportunity to hit the long shot that boosts your bankroll up, and you could jump up 2 or 3 limits, assuming you have the ability to do that. So I talk a lot more about this in 4-step poker as well. I have like my blueprint that I give you for cash game and tournament divide, and how to structure your bankroll and divide it to give yourself the best chance of maximizing profit long term, and just to reduce your chances of going broke. And I go through all the math and all the numbers that are in there, and I think that's really, really useful, because it took me a long time to figure that out in the beginning of my career, and I could have saved a lot of money and made a lot more money if I had the right tools to get that going forward. So I think it's key to divide these two, and to mix it up a little bit between cash games and tournaments, because I think you give yourself 2 different necessary options to build your bankroll, and I think that's really, really important. Marty's wondering why she got booted from the webinar. Hey, I'm sorry. I can only have 10 people at a time here in this webinar, so every time someone's done with a question, I make room for the other people. Last time we were really, really full, and I had people that were waiting for an hour to get in. I didn't know that there was a 10-person limit, so I was kindly asking people to leave afterwards. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before, Marty, but I still love you. Okay, we have a few more here on YouTube. Wow, I got a bunch of comments here. Max wants to know my poker life story, like when you started. I talked a little bit about that today. Max, if you want to know more, head over to alectorelli.com, my website. You'll see I share a bit of it there. I also have it a bit in interviews. If you look around on YouTube, there's a few interviews on there. But I think on my website I talk quite a bit about it on the About page or the bio. So check out my website, alectorelli.com. Max, you'll find plenty there. Okay, Frederick, great question. When I play, after a while... Oh, he's okay, sorry. When I play, after a while, I lose more and more focus. When I really focus on the game, I'm running very good. Broken English. Anyway, what's your best tips to stay focused while playing? So I talked a little bit about this, a lot about this, I guess, in engineering perfect day. I think that's a big part of it. I think a big part of it for me personally is clearing things off my schedule so that on game days, poker's the only thing I have to focus on. And I think that a lot of it happens before I even get to the table. So step 1 of 4-step poker is before the game. So it's everything you have to do before you even get to the poker table. I built an entire step of my course about things you have to do before you even get to the poker table, because I think it's that important. It's the first step of my course. It's not the 4th step, it's the first one. Okay, so if you get to the poker table and you're distracted, tilted, frustrated, your mind's not in it, you're not hungry to play, you don't feel like being there, if any situation happens, except your energy being really excited, passionate, and dying to play poker, then you did something wrong. Because you either did something wrong to not engineer that, right? You can engineer the way that you feel to a certain degree. or you chose to play poker when you shouldn't have played. So you did something wrong, because you never have to play poker. You're always there by choice. It's not like it's different. Poker is different than tennis or golf or whatever, where athletes have to show up if they're tired, if their leg hurts, if they don't feel like playing, if their kid is sick. They have to go because the tournament starts on March 17th, and that's when it starts. It doesn't wait for Roger Federer to feel like playing tennis, right? So in poker, you could attack this twice. You could engineer, which is what professionals do. It's not like every single day there's a tournament an athlete feels like going to play. That's just to be a supersonic coincidence, right? It's pretty impossible to think that. But they engineer. They get inspired. They get into the mode. So that's step one. Those are things that you do before you get to the game. For me, it starts the night before. My pregame routine starts tonight if I'm going to go play poker tomorrow, and it continues all the way up until noon on the starting day or whenever I get to the table. So that's a way to approach it. And if you're not approaching it that way, you're missing out on the chance to engineer. The second is the choice that you have. You know, you as a poker player have a choice about when to play that other athletes don't have. So if you're not executing that choice correctly, then you are putting yourself in a spot where you're not giving yourself the best EV. Most people think that they have to play poker. The more hours I play, the more money I make. All these theoretical things that they talk about. Well, the amount of money I make at the end of the year is a function of how many hands of poker I play, how many hands of poker plays, a function of how many hours I play, and my win rate is how good I am. So I should just play more poker, more hours, more hands, so I can make more money. Sure, that's true. If you're a robot, it's true. If you achieve a certain win rate every single hand of poker you play from now until the end of next year, then that's what you should do. But find me someone in the world that does that. That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. So that's all bullshit. That's what it is. It's just theoretical bullshit. It helps to know the theory, sure, but when it comes to applying the theory, you have to know the person that needs to engineer that happening, and that's you. So if you can't be in that spot to execute that win rate and all that theoretical stuff, then you're not achieving that theoretical result, which means that the best decision might not be to log the most amount of hours, the most amount of hands, the most amount of times, the most amount of days. So there's other things at play here. So again, it's all in four step. Like if you're really into it, that's what the whole course is about. If you want to know more about it, I like highly suggest taking it. It's basically, the whole first step is what to do before you play. There's a whole section on like just the decisions I make, when I should go to the table, when I should quit the table, when it's time to leave the game, what games to play. All those sorts of things help for being focused. Yeah, so I do a lot for that. I think that's, as you get better, it's more and more and more important. Because the difference in skill between you and your opponents, from a technical standpoint, shrinks as you get to the top, right? You watch a pro team, pro athletes, okay? You watch pro athletes. They all have the capacity to play a certain way. So on any given day, you'll see like a basketball game, and it's a really close game, right? And the announcer's like, oh, well, I believe in this team because they are playing really well today, and this, and this, and the coach is this, and the player is that. And the other guy's like, no, I think the other team because this, and this. And what does it come down to? It comes down to who executes better on game day, because every team has the capacity to win, unless it's like the worst team in the league versus like the best team. But like most of the time in sports, it's any team has the capacity to win on any given Sunday. That's why the movie's on any given Sunday. It's like, well, anything could happen. Like, I mean, bad teams could win if they play good. Good teams could lose if they play bad. So, like, I'm not saying that talent isn't important. I'm saying the ability to execute your talent becomes more and more important as the edges shrink. The edges shrink the more talented you get. Because your biggest growth in poker is in the beginning. You skyrocket in terms of your knowledge, right, when you first start doing something. Day 1, you're a fish. Day 2, you're a fish. Day 3, you're a little bit better than a fish. Take learning to snowboard, learning to ski. The first day, you get up, you fall down. The second day, you get up, you kind of like move around. The third day, a week later, you're going from never having stood before to actually skiing or wakeboarding. The first time, you can't fall off. The second day, you're standing up riding the wave. It's like you get a huge amount of competency very, very quickly. And that competency decreases exponentially as you go on and on and on. But most people, even when they're excellent, they only spend their time, not when they're excellent, there's not many people that are excellent, when they're very good, when they're competent, when they're talented, they only spend their time getting a little bit more talented. It's like when they should spend their time being more focused, playing better poker, being at their A game. Because the difference between their A game and their C game is the difference between whether they're going to win or lose on a given day. Most people have the capacity to win. Most people don't execute their capacity. That's just how it is. That's why I built 4-step. So anyway, it's good stuff. I think whether you take 4-step or not, I don't really, it is what it is, I don't really care. But I think that's something that most people should work more on, and they should work less on the skill set part once they get to a certain level of competency. So it's really important. All right, I'm out of time, everybody. Love you guys. Taking off, hour and a half. My time. So anyway, I really enjoyed this, guys. I'll do this again soon. If you want to be notified for when I'm going to do more webinars, head over to my site, alectorelli.com. Subscribe to my blog. Just enter your name and email in the header, and I will send a newsletter out to all my subscribers. They always get first dibs. You guys will always know first when I'm going to do these, so you guys can jump in and make sure that you're in here, and I'll get all your questions answered one-on-one. Otherwise, just follow me on social media because I put stuff out on there as well. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers, everybody. Bye.